If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Horsin' Around here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravitz, along with host of Bettin' and Boozin', Kyle Roscoe, and trying to get a beverage, knowing him, Chad Schexnayder, formerly of the Fairgrounds podcast, and he's going to be doing some work upcoming for Twin Spires. Guys, how are we doing today? Kyle, what's going on?
Good, man. Just after a good week of racing and some pretty dominant favorites that we'll talk, or some favorite winners that we'll talk about. But Chad, what's going on? How you doing?
Doing good, man. How's you guys? A little scramble here at the end, try to get on.
No, that's all right. You're looking good and sounded good, Chad. Just real quick so tonight, ladies and gentlemen, again, this show is very much important to us because this is where we really want to bring in the fans, you folks at home. So if you're watching live, please make sure you comment in the chat on YouTube. We're going to get to as many comments and questions that you have in the live chat as possible. If you're watching this as a replay, whether it be video or audio, go to the YouTube channel and comment down below the video player because we want to hear what you have to say. We're going to be recapping quickly some of the big stakes that happened at the Fairgrounds in New Orleans this past weekend. And then we're also going to talk about the Eclipse Awards, which is this Thursday night. We'll give our opinions on the Eclipse Awards. Of course, you can follow me right there on the screen right there on X at HKravitz, and also scrolling the bottom of the screen, email hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. We've got a lot of shows this week, Kyle, as you are well aware of. And Chad, I sent down an email. Perhaps you saw it as well. We got Wednesday night, Kyle. You're going to be with the B&B guys covering a really good loaded middle pick 4 sequence on Pegasus Day with 3 stakes. And then Thursday, we've got 2 shows, everyone. We're going to do our preview show for Pegasus Day, and wow, what a card. If you guys have seen the card at Gulfstream, you want to talk about full fields. Oh my goodness. We have an early show Thursday. It's actually incorrect on the screen. I actually have to change it right now. Let me change that. The show, we have 2 shows. Oh, actually, it is good. I'm sorry. I did change it. We have 2 shows Thursday. One is at 6 p.m. Eastern before the Eclipse Awards with Jason Blewett of West Point Thoroughbreds will be with us handicapping. And then maybe Chad will join us, an after party Eclipse at 9:30 Eastern after the Eclipse Awards to talk about who won, what we thought. I'll have a beverage in hand. Kyle, I know you will be as well. And hey, maybe we'll see what Chad's doing up at that time. But anyway, we got a big week. And then last thing, this Saturday, live coverage.
Yep.
Live coverage right here of the Pegasus Turf and the Pegasus. Join us at, I believe I said at 4:30 Eastern, I believe, where we're going to cover those 2 races live right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. But we got a lot to talk about tonight. Chad, for people that are not familiar with you, you've been on our show several times. We love having you. You're just a complete wealth of knowledge, excellent handicapper. Just give us quick 30 seconds for the people at home how you're involved in horse racing.
Right. So I worked at the track with the Fairgrounds down here in New Orleans for a few years right out of college, and then just stayed with it. Ended up doing the podcast the last 3 or 4 years for the Fairgrounds. They're just during the racing season. Myself and Mike Diliberto, who's the morning line maker and the head clocker here at the Fairgrounds. Dried it up a little bit this year just through time restraints with kids and everything else. But yeah, still following it, helping out Joey K and Kilroy on the big days. Champions Day for the Louisiana Breds. Obviously, all the big 3-year-old days in there, helping those guys, helping them on the Twin Spires feed, and just doing whatever they need me to do while I'm out there and handicapping, and still trying to stay involved.
No, we definitely don't want to lose a Chad Schexnayder in the horse racing world. So we appreciate it. It's awesome you're doing work for Twin Spires. That'll be live on their simulcast feed. So looking forward to that. We've got Katie is here real quick. We're going to roll it down here. Horsey Dave is here from a very cold and snowy Ottawa. I'll tell you what, Kate and Bradar and Mike Joyce on the set this weekend at New Orleans, they were acting like it was I don't like it was around here, man. There. But even for New Orleans, it was pretty damn cold this past weekend.
I feel a little, guilty whining about it because it was 43 with about 15 mile per hour winds. But
that's
to
chilly.
us, that's pretty chilly. I mean, it's pretty cold. So we don't see 32. I mean, our winters come in like 3 or 4 day stretches. Now I think it's over. Like winter's over for us now.
Yeah.
I don't expect it to be down to 32 degrees anymore. So, yeah, but the horses love it. The horses, I mean, you can see them. They come in the paddock. They're full of themselves. They're on the track in the morning. They're, full of themselves in the morning. They love it. The help doesn't like it very much, and the fans don't. But, yeah, the horses definitely thrive in it down here.
Kyle, we love it like a 4-day winter.
Oh,
Kyle
man.
lives in Wisconsin, by the way, Chad. So
yeah,
man,
it's been 0 degrees for like 2 weeks straight now at this point.
If there's a half an inch of snow in New Orleans, everything will shut down. Schools, nobody would do nothing if there's a half.
Again, I've told people it's all relative, right? Like I was in Florida a few weeks ago. We'll talk about the races in a sec. I was in Florida a few weeks ago, and it was like mid 60s and like cloudy, and people were like had like warm jackets on, right? When you're used to 85 or, you're used to like, this time of year, maybe like high 50s, low 60s, 43 and windy is 20. I mean, that's a big difference. So I get it. All right. Let's talk about Fairgrounds Saturday. Chad, obviously you watched these races. You had your own podcast. Maybe it'll come back hopefully, but you're extremely knowledgeable with Fairgrounds, especially, which is why I wanted to have and really appreciate you coming on tonight. I know you're a big family man, and you got to rest that arm up from pitching to your youngster and to getting right for the baseball travel or whatever you got going on down there. Let's talk about Saudi Crown first. Saudi Crown, I'm bringing it on the screen here in just a second. Saudi Crown, of course, won the Louisiana Stakes. It was basically him versus Smile Happy. I think we all agree with that, Chad. And there's really not too much to watch on the replay, although we will show it. Here's obviously the PPs, but actually go to the chart. He just wired the field, looked really good. I mean, he's absolutely ready for his trip to Saudi Arabia in a month, Chad. It was very impressive, despite the fact it was a pretty facile win.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. I mean, I did one podcast for some friends of mine that had one last week, and we were talking about some stakes, and I didn't like Smile Happy at all, and I didn't think, under the lights he gets a little weird, and he's just a kind of a crazy horse to begin with, and I knew the lights were going to be on at 5:30 down here, and I didn't really, I just wasn't a fan of his, and I didn't think it was going to be his time. I thought it was between Saudi Crown, Capuna, and Red Route 1. Those are the three horses I really wanted in that race. Capuna ended up scratching. I thought Red Route 1 would love the Fairgrounds stretch. I couldn't believe in 15, 16 starts he hadn't been at the Fairgrounds, but he's always been at Oaklawn. This was his first start here. I thought he really loved the stretch here. And I thought Saudi Crown just was the class of the race. I mean, I knew he wasn't going to be a price, but those were really the three I wanted, and one of them scratched, and happened to get lucky with Red Route 1 running second.
Well, Kyle, I think the Capuna scratch, who was the 7, really affected this race because, Raylu can be pretty aggressive, Chad and Kyle, and I thought that might be the one that went after Saudi Crown. Right here, Kyle, honestly, I said this race is over.
I mean,
Saudi Crown was absolutely not ready, this race was over right here.
I mean, we were watching it together, and we talked about it. It was like, unless this is a complete prep for Saudi Crown, like not ready at all, he should win this by 5, 6, 7, and that's what he ended up doing in the end. As we'll play through it, and not even not fast fractions either. 24 flat, 47-4, very moderate for a horse of Saudi Crown's temperament. So the fact that he was just able to go on with it with very little urging shows how he's going to be ready for Saudi.
Chad, if you're a fan of Red Route 1, he was actually up a little closer to the pace, Chad. And he still finished. I think Red Route 1's going to have a really nice year. I don't know if he's ever going to be a grade 1 type, but I think he's going to have a real solid year in 24.
No, I think he
won
is
in
too.
This race right here, coming up the rail.
Yeah, I think he is too. I think Steve wanted him to get a shot here with some great stakes money. He's not going anywhere. He's definitely going to be around the whole season for the older division. And I can tell you this too. One of his stablemates just started working back here at the Fairgrounds too. Disarm, if you guys remember Disarm from last year from the Kentucky Derby too, he's working back here at the Fairgrounds, looking good, and they're expecting big things out of him this year.
I really think Saudi Crown has a chance to be the Breeders' Cup Classic champion this year if he continues to develop. I know the White Abaro dusted him in Santa Anita, Kyle, but it was a bit of an afterthought. They weren't sure they were even going. If he can continue to get the distance, Kyle, I think Saudi Crown is a major player in the handicap division this year.
I agree with you completely. I think it's a very different scenario in effect of, I mean, obviously we're gonna have to see the PPs, but if Saudi Crown's going to be able to get the lead. Obviously, White Barrio is not slow out of the gate by any means, but if Saudi Crown continues to develop into his 4-year-old year, I think if he gets out to the lead, he can give White Barrio definitely a run for his money for sure, and definitely will be a better price.
I know there's no betting, Chad, in Saudi Arabia, like, at the track.
Right.
I have a strange feeling that Saudi Crown is going to be favored over White Barrio in that race a month from now, mainly because of the name and all that other stuff. But he's got a prep into him now. If Saudi Crown is like 3-1 and White Barrio is 9-5 in that race, sign me up for Saudi Crown. Absolutely.
Right. Well, this was the move a couple of years ago that Brad wanted to do with Mandaloun. It was the same race. It was the Louisiana Stakes. Mandaloun beat Midnight Bourbon, and the plan was to go to Saudi. And then he came up with a little injury, never ended up going. So this has been Brad Cox wanting to use this prep race to kind of it's a mile on the 16th, so it's not like it was really putting the strengths to him. I mean, remember that race in Saudi is a 1-turn mile on the 8th.
Yeah,
so,
correct.
Yeah, so that's I think that helps the speed. I think that helps him tactically too.
We got some great comments. Let's bring some up here. Horsey Dave's got always poo-poo on what's going on. Horsey Dave is a great viewer. I mean, look, Chad, I don't want to dwell on it. There were scratches. It was small fields. It is just a real bummer. I'm not really asking for a comment from you, but from a betting perspective, it's just disappointing. It really is.
Well, in the 3-year-old division, look, it's been this way for a few years. It's the Brad Cox and Steve Asmussen show, right? I mean, they're the two Goliaths, and they scare off. Let's be honest. The shippers don't want to come. I mean, because you got to come to these guys' home turf in the winter and try to beat them. So if you come in with something, you better have a runner, or you're not going to beat these guys at their home track.
Jim Pilar's from Buffalo. By the way, Jim, I'm so sorry, man. I really wanted Buffalo to win. I actually had a small future bet on them for the Super Bowl. So Jim is from Buffalo. Chad, he's a huge Bills fan. Brutal loss for them. But anyway, you just talked about Smile Happy. I mean, McPeak said he's just a prima donna, man. He's just goofy. When he feels good, he's really good. But just his gait issues just continue to be a problem. They're going to have to figure that out, because you just can't continue to be goofy behind the gate before the race. I don't know what they're going to do.
It could be as simple as when the lights go on at the track or it's at nighttime, he loses his mind, because in the one at Churchill Downs, the Stephen Foster, he was behind the gate for 10 minutes. The lights were on. The same thing here. And, he came around the paddock. Kevin Kilroy put a video out on Twitter the day before. He came into the paddock during the day to do some schooling, and he looked great. I mean, he was on his toes. He was dappled out. And I wrote back on Twitter to Kevin. I said, "Looks like Tarzan, but will he run like James?" and that's basically what happened. I mean, he
Disney reference. We like it.
Yeah. So I mean, he's a tough one to trust when you put your money down. That's for sure.
Let's talk about the Lecomte. It was a field of 6. I'm going to bring up the standard chart here. Track Phantom wires the field for Steve, although I got to be honest, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, Chad, I'm not sure this is the Steve Asmussen you want going forward in the 3-year-old division. But Track Phantom, I will readily admit, and Kyle knows this, Kyle and I had, unfortunately, listen, we got to fall on the sword, Kyle, and be honest with our viewers. Chad, Kyle and I had big doubles, Saudi to Nash, which actually paid like 4.5 to 1, which, if you think about it, is really pretty good, considering we thought Saudi Crown was a lead pipe cinch, and so all we needed is Nash to win, and you get 9 to 2 on that bet. We are obviously wrong. Track Phantom is really good out of the gate, and I got to give Rosario credit here, Chad, because sometimes we're tough on Rosario, but he was very aggressive, would not let Nash be comfortable on the inside, and said, "F that, I'm just going to go to the lead." And Nash just can't pass anyone right now.
Well, I think it was a little bit of a replay of the gun runner, right? I mean, Track Phantom was drawn to the outside of Nash again, but Nash didn't get off well that day, and Track Phantom took the race to him and ended up winning. With your, if you're the connections, Brad Cox and them, you have to try something different the next time. So you're drawn inside again. Now you have to go. I mean, you have to press and go and see if you got the best horse or not. And he backed down again. It's like he backed away from Track Phantom again and let Track Phantom kind of dictate the terms to him. Now, it could be as simple as, maybe this isn't his favorite track. Maybe he loves Churchill and all that. But Track Phantom's a nice horse. I mean, he took the race to him right here. And I really thought at this point Nash was going to say, okay, I got to get in front. I'm faster. I think the bottom line is it don't matter how they break. Track Phantom's a faster horse. In the first quarter mile, he's just faster. And I think he takes the race to him. And Rosario said, "I got you pinned. I'm on your outside. I'm going to keep you there, and let's see if you can keep up with me." And he couldn't.
So, Chad, here's what I want to ask you. It's a little bit hard to tell. I'm going to go full screen right here. So right at this point, I froze it there because Rosario's got a loose rein. I mean, he's really asking right now. I was okay, and I'm going to let you speak about this too. I was actually okay with Nash taking back here, Chad, because it just seemed like Rosario was so intent to go to the lead that if Nash rushes up, they're going to go, 46 and change to the half. Sure, that might take Track Phantom away, but I don't think that's what Nash really wanted to do. I know he wants to be on the lead, but if you can't rate off comfortably and go past Kyle, you're just not good enough. I don't know. I hear what you're saying, Chad, but it just feels like if Nash was going to continue to go, it would have just been a complete speed fest. And I just don't know if Nash is that good. But Kyle, I'll let you talk about that scenario first.
No, I mean, you and I, again, we were watching this race together as well as we had the doubles and stuff. I mean, we were perfectly content with it. Like, I feel like you and Chad are kind of on the same wavelength, though. If you just can't rate off, still getting basically to the lead and just you can't pass anyone, you're just not good enough. It's just kind of the way it is. Granted, Track Phantom kind of had it, his own way by, getting 48 and 1 to the half mile. But still, I mean, if Nash was the better horse, there's no reason for him to not go by. I mean, it just boils down to as simple as that. And, sometimes you're right in this game and sometimes you're wrong. And unfortunately, Howard, we were wrong. But Chad, I mean, your point's definitely taken to the fact that I'm sure that's what they wanted to do with Nash. As you saw, Flo was just pumping to the inside, trying to get him to the lead. And as you guys stated, Rosario was just full hell-bent intent on getting the lead.
This is where he won the race right here. He won the race by going from 48 to 113 and having a full-length lead on him on what was really a good part of the track. I really thought the inside was pretty good too. So I think right at this point, when the 113 clicked up, it was definitely game over. I mean, they're not going to go that slow in the next race for him. That's for sure.
Right here. When he's at here, Drew started asking. I turned to Kyle, said, right here. I said, nope. Right there, God. Remember, right? Unfortunately, I said, nope. And the only complaint I have with Drew, and people can say that I'm wrong, and that's fine. He shouldn't have let Track Phantom get away with those middle quarters. I mean, Chad,
the middle one,
if you want to let him go, fine, but then you got to re-engage a little bit, right? He sort of was happy being like a length off and not really engaging. I think when a horse feels pressure on their belly, right on their flank, I think it's different than being like a length off. Would you agree with that as well?
I think so. Yeah, I agree with that. And look, Nash has been keeping pretty good company. I mean, his last work was with Saudi Crown here, and you couldn't separate him. So it's not like he wasn't ready, he wasn't fit. Track Phantom he's got a good part of track. And look, man, I'm telling you, I said this in the Gun Runner. He looks like Epicenter coming down the track. He's just galloping. He's just galloping in that straight line, just doing whatever he wants, got his ears up, and he's just striding out. I mean, he loves it down here. You could tell he's thriving, and then Steve's pushing all the right buttons with this horse. And now he's won all 3 two-turn races that he's been in now. So if you're going to come get him, from Risen Star. Good luck. I mean, I don't know what's coming. Maybe a stablemate's coming, but we'll see.
Michael Austin's from the West Coast area. Chad, big fan of the show. Michael, thanks for joining the show. No turn. Yeah, I said on Thursday on the show that Nash I thought he'd win this race, to be honest. But then, to be honest, I didn't think he was a Derby horse, Chad. And I said he's a great candidate for the Pat Day Mile on Churchill Day, or maybe the H. Allen Jerkins or the Woody Stevens. I think Nash could be a serious miler, in my opinion.
So I can tell you this too. When Nash came into the paddock for the Gun Runner, I was there, and he didn't look good. I mean, I don't know what it was. He came in that day, and you have this feeling about, you've seen enough Brad Cox horses in the paddock. You oh, good luck beating this horse. You get that feeling, especially with the stakes horses. That day when he came into the paddock for the Gun Runner, I was like, something don't look right. I never, first time I saw him, obviously live at Churchill. But I was like, man, this don't look like a typical Brad Cox on the juice, ready to roll kind of horse, And I was like, I kept telling Joe and him, I said, I don't think he's going to win today. And that was the Gun Runner. He did look better, and maybe he needed a race over the track. I thought he looked really good. But guess what? Track Phantom, he took the next step too. I don't think Nash is a bad horse. Don't get me wrong. He hung in there for a second. I think it was there might not be much behind this group. But it's probably a little too early to give up the 2 turns with him, just because of where we're at in the 3-year-old season. But I could definitely see him in a Pat Day Mile.
Yeah.
Alan Jerkins at Saratoga, jerking over some 3-year-olds there and sprint races, just yanking the hearts right out of them.
Hey, this is a PG show. Chad.
Yeah. He's a talented sprinter, but I just don't think they can go that route yet. They're not going to go that route yet.
Kyle, a 90 buyer. I mean, Track Phantom has paired up some buyers basically, but that's not good enough to win the Derby. Now, there is still 3.5 months. I personally don't consider Track Phantom a serious Derby contender yet. I need to see more. Your thoughts going forward, Kyle, on Track Phantom?
I mean, you and I are in a complete agreement with that. I mean, look, 88, 89, 90, it's slow progression. But the fact of the matter is that unless he takes a big step into the Risen Star, or the Louisiana Derby, depending on whichever goes forward, it's not going to be enough. So he's going to have to show more. But I know, Howard, you're talking about another horse that ran earlier today for the same for the same barn.
Oh yeah,
who happened to run a little bit better number than that, even first time out.
A lot better. Chad, real quick, track fan going forward. Is he the next epicenter? You like him, obviously.
I think he's in the right hands. I think he is going to get better as the races get longer. And I think Steve has a plan. And I'm not gonna doubt what Steve Asmussen does with these horses. I can tell you this: Joel Rosario left something in the tank with this horse. He didn't leave much in the tank with Hall of Fame. And I'll tell you what. I talked to Steve about it, and he made a good point. He said, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Well, no, we're going to bring him up right now. Sorry, a little issue here with my past performances, which I'm bringing up right now. So Hall of Fame. This horse, to me, is serious. Now, Hall of Fame, for everyone's like, who the hell is Hall of Fame? Hall of Fame broke his maiden on Saturday in race 5. And why it's important to note is he won by 10, and he got a 94 buyer, was faster on every measure. And the way he did it, really impressed me, Chad, because that was a fast pace early. 46.3, 111 and 2, like a full 2 seconds faster to the 3/4 than the Lecomte. He didn't finish quite, as fast, obviously, by the fractions, but his final time was faster. I'm going to show the middle portion of this. Well, let me show the PPs here, bringing these up. This horse, Chad, cost $1.4 million, a gun runner. Kyle, I like a gun runner, by the way, in the Derby, but we'll get to that horse in a second. It just shows you, Chad, how much a horse can improve from start 1 to start 2 with a 28-point buyer jump. Now, this horse, to me, I know it's only 2 starts and just broke his maiden, but everything about this horse tells me this could be a serious Derby contender in 3.5 months from now.
No, there's no doubt about it. He's got a tremendous amount of talent, and he's going to run back in the Risen Star. Steve already said they're pointing that way. And Steve describes him as just a laid-back, big. You gotta ask him if you want him to run. And knowing that he's playing a little bit of catch-up, Steve said, look, I told Rosario, be more aggressive. Ride him Saturday. We got to get something out of him. I don't, time-wise, you gotta push this horse. We need to get, not to the bottom of him, but they playing catch-up on a horse like Track Phantom. So he needed to get a nice race in him and a fast race in him to see what he's about. So I think that was the plan. That's why I think you saw more aggressive Joel Rosario here, and you saw Joel not really let up on him until, inside the 16th pole, because Steve said he needed to get that kind of race in him, a fast race. The amount of lengths didn't really matter to him. But a horse like Track Phantom, he's been around 2 turns 3 times, right? So he had the race 1. I think he kind of put it on cruise control that last 16th of a mile. So I don't, the buyer speed figures, whatever. If they run tomorrow, I still want Track Phantom right now. We'll see what happens in the Risen Star. Just because I'm not a huge maiden winner by 10 betting. Look at Nash, wins by 10 his maiden and can't, lost 2 in a row. So let's take a step back on this horse for now. He's definitely talented, but he's playing catch up. I think that's why Steve wanted an aggressive run. And you see Rosario, he's going to get on him right here and say, see you later. Just follow the direction. So obviously very talented, playing a little bit of catch up, but we'll see. Risen Star, Steve might have the first and second choices. Well,
Chad, usually you see a horse like back up when you ask at the turn. He couldn't get through. And Funny Flame's not that bad a horse, the 6 here, but I'm not. It's not the Kyle. To me, it's not that he won by 10 because the rest of the field was meh. But the way he did it, I mean, he asked up the inside. He had forced his way through. And if you watch the start of the race, Chad, he was actually a little fidgety in the gate. Didn't break great. This is just eye-opening to me. This is your Nash point is well made, Chad. But I think the way that he did it was completely different than the way that Nash broke his maiden, Kyle.
I mean, just completely professional. I mean, he runs like an Asmussen down the inside, always does. The trip is definitely one to take in factor. The fact that he was inside the whole way, back 3/4 all the way around the turn almost, and then ended up saying, see you later. But look, Chad's point is well meant. You can only take a horse's maiden so far. Obviously, we'll see what he's really made of in a race like the Risen Star. where he'll have to face a little bit more pressure than maybe, than some maiden breakers that, haven't really shown anything yet. So that'll be where we really see. But there's one other, as Howard hinted to, of course, there's another horse that we're a little bit more interested in, just, from a side bet standpoint in the Risen Star. But definitely, I mean, look, all these horses going forward could be seriously well met.
Colin Quinn, we haven't seen this name, Kyle. Colin Quinn, thanks for joining. He said, I had an embarrassing amount of money on Nash futures, anywhere from 35 to 75. Look, when Nash broke his maiden,
that's what I was gonna
Chad,
say.
he was like the bee's knees. I mean, everyone was. So, Colin, don't feel bad. It's a really, really tough game. Now, let's talk about going forward a little bit, and then we'll talk about the Eclipse guys. So, in the Risen Star, which is the next leg, basically in New Orleans, which is basically a prep for the Louisiana Derby. There's horses that are planning on going, including the monster we just saw, Hall of Fame. Track Phantom is planning on going. Catching Freedom, a real nice horse for Cox, he said he's going. He's a closer, more long-winded. Our boy Sierra Leone, Kyle is pointing to there. 13-1 Sierra Leone in the Kentucky Derby Future Ranger Pool 3, the second lowest of any individual horse after Fierceness at 8-1. Chad, the Risen Star looks like it could be one of the better Kentucky Derby preps of the year as of now.
And it usually is. I mean, people always come here because it's that mile and an eighth distance really kind of separates the pretenders from the contenders, right? I mean, if you got a horse at this time of year, you think you can make it. The Risen Star, mile and an eighth in February, that'll make it happen. So I think it's always been a good race. A couple years ago, it had 3 or 4 grade 1, grade 2 winners come out of it. Sometimes it's stronger than Louisiana Derby, let's be honest, because you can scare somebody off with a nice Risen Star and come back in Louisiana Derby. Nobody wants to come back and see you. So another thing to consider too, guys, remember Track Phantom has a lot of points now. Hall of Fame doesn't have any. So Steve can play a little bit conservative. He don't want to peak in February, right? You want to peak in May. So he's got the points going forward. He's in a really, really good spot with Track Phantom, where he kind of needs points with Hall of Fame. I think you'll see the screws get a little tightened on Hall of Fame now.
Chad, I wouldn't be surprised if Hall of Fame skips the Risen Star and goes right to Louisiana Derby. Like, he doesn't really need to run in that race. I'd be a little surprised if he does. If people think they're going to hook up, that ain't happening. They're both Steves. I'm sure there'll be some other speed in the race, but there's no way those two are going to hook up on the front end or anything. So, I'm very curious to see what happens. Other quick 3-0 news, guys, then we'll talk Eclipse. Big situation with Baffert today, who dropped his case for Medina Spirit. And then Kyle, right, there it is. And then Kyle Churchill, how do I put this? Because we have friends at CDI. Basically said, sorry, sir, we're still keeping our suspension and other things. Chad, we can probably talk about that for 45 minutes, but it does not look like Baffert's going to have any runners in this year's Kentucky Derby. I'm not really asking you guys for any particular comments, although Chad, I don't know your personal opinion of Baffert. I would say next year, Chad, I'd be shocked if Baffert is not allowed to run the Derby. That's just my opinion on that.
I would. He's obviously somebody has a vendetta up there in Kentucky. That's all I know.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see what else here. Pool 3 we talked about. The Kentucky Derby Future Pool, crazy. I mean, as much as I texted someone today, Chad and Kyle, as much as I love Sierra Leone, Chad, I think we've got a big future bet at 150-1 on Sierra Leone this whole podcast, and I have more than some other people. I wouldn't touch Sierra Leone at 25-1 right now. These Kentucky Derby Future Wager, people can do whatever they want with their money, is absolutely absurd to me. Like, even Fierceless at 8-1 is ridiculous. What is it going to be on the day? Even if he's good, what is he, 5-2, 3-1 on the day at the lowest, probably? I mean, it's whatever. It's silly, but I guess that means people like Fierceless and, of course, Sierra Leone, Chad.
Well, I'm out of the Kentucky Derby Future business. I've skipped the last year. I've skipped this year.
Okay.
Since Epicenter broke my heart with my future bet on Thanksgiving the year before. I had him at 58-1 and would have paid for a couple of Catholic school tuitions if he'd have won.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
that was tough. Speed of the Horses here. Again, thank you. Keep bringing the comments and questions, guys, as we're going to talk about the Eclipse for about 10 or 15 minutes here in just a second. Give me a couple of weeks, and I'll let you know which direction horse racing is going. It seems to me that the weather has a huge influence this last week. Look, Speed of the Horse, it's cold. And I don't know if it's really the weather as much as HISA. Like, we're just being very careful. That's a whole other argument. We can have that discussion for another horse in a round. But it was, Kyle, it was legit cold throughout like 75% of the country. Well, Chad was just talking about New Orleans, and that's on the Gulf of Mexico. So, I mean, it was just really cold.
Well, yeah, and everywhere. I mean, even Florida, like you said, we were both there at the same time. It's 50 degrees, 45 degrees in Florida, and I mean, however often do you get that? So, like I said, this is the time that really separates. Like Chad said, I like that a lot. The pretenders from the contenders. So these next few weeks, and then we'll get into the actual Derby prep season. That'll be the real time to see when what separates the men from the boys.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Let's have a quick conversation about the Eclipse Awards, Chad. These are going to be happening, of course, Thursday night down in Florida at the Breakers, I believe, which is a famous hotel down there. I think it's in West Palm Beach. Don't quote me on that. Not only do I have the finalists up, Chad, but I also have, let me go full screen with us, Paul Halloran, fantastic host on the show, who's actually a voter for the Eclipse Awards. Chad, I'm assuming you've never been a voter. Is that correct?
I have not. No. Nope.
Okay, so I'm going to show you Paul Halloran's picks for the Eclipse, who was an actual voter. Of course, they had to vote for who they liked, and then the nominees came out. So you're going to see Paul's going to have some choices that aren't even choices in the actual Eclipse Awards, because that's how it works. But anyway, we're not going to go through every category, Chad, and we're not going to talk about stats. Just quick snapshot opinions, guys, on some of the major ones. Fiercest obviously is going to win that, and it's obviously just FYI. 3-year-old male, I'm assuming is me, Arcangelo. I think he's very deserving. 3-year-old filly is a little bit interesting. I know Mauj has gotten a little bit of love, Chad and Kyle, because Mauj, of course, won the QE2, which is a big race, grade 1 at Keeneland, and then ran a hole in the wind. Just a brutal loss in the Breeders' Cup mile against Master of the Seas. And then Randomized had a good year too. Real quick, Chad, your thoughts on that 3-year-old filly division?
Pretty mischievous for me, just from start to finish. Just participated in a lot of the big races. I give a lot of credence to that. I mean, I know some horses can come on and win it from the summer on and all that, but I like to reward a horse that's done it the whole year and really didn't skip a lot of dances. And even if she lost or he lost, still came back and won and won the right races. And that's what Pretty Mischievous did for me.
Yeah, I agree. Pretty mischievous. And just so people in the chat, this is not, I repeat, this is not Paul Halloran's voting here. This is the actual horses that are eligible to win Thursday night. I'll show Paul's clips voting here in just a second. Older Dirt Male. This is tricky, Kyle, because, Chad, sometimes they like to split it up. Like they give Horse of the Year to one, and then they give the older Dirt. Sorry, that's Dirt Male. I'm sorry. They give the older male to someone else. We'll get to that. I'm pretty sure that older Dirt Male, I have a feeling is going to be White Abario. You could go really with any of these three, though, Kyle, on the older Dirt Male.
Mean, people are saying it's a race between Cody's Wish and White Abario, and they're completely forgetting, how good Elite Power's been throughout his campaign this year. I mean, your point is taken, Howard. I mean, that's kind of the way I viewed it. I personally think Cody's Wish should win the older Dirt Male, but if there's a lot of love for Cody's Wish for Horse of the Year, they might give an award like this to White Abario, which again, no shorting White Abario and what he's done this year, but I would argue that Cody's Wish's campaign has been better throughout the entire year rather than just towards the end. But again, I could see this one going to either one of those two.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Older Dirt Female, I'll tell you, the females were really good. Clarier, Goodnight Olive, Idiomatic. Chad, thoughts on the older Dirt Female, and then we'll get to the last few.
Brad did a great job campaigning Idiomatic and finding the spots that she ended up in, because they weren't very hard. I mean, she did what she had to do kind of throughout the year. I mean, you look at who she's beaten and you're like, man, nobody else could have came and got her at some point, like she just kept knocking off those wins, and she's going to get rewarded I think she gets rewarded here. I really do. I think she's going to end up winning it.
Completely agree with you.
I think she should. I know Goodnight Olive won, of course, the Breeders' Cup. I had a pretty big play in the Breeders' Cup betting challenge with Idiomatic, so I needed her badly. It was sort of ugly the last eighth of the mile in that race, but I didn't care. She got the job done. Male Sprinter, again, this is tricky because the Cody's Wish won the mile in the Breeders' Cup. I think Elite Power is going to win this one, Kyle. That's who I would personally vote for. No disrespect to Cody's Wish, but I always think sprinters like 6 and 7 furlongs, and Cody can do those. But really, when I think 6 or 7, it's elite power to me.
I completely agree with you. I think,
Yeah.
There's a lot of Cody's Wish love out there, but like you said, going that 6-7 furlongs, there's no one better than elite power. So I think I completely agree with you.
Please comment in the chat, everyone, and comment down below the video player. Who are your Eclipse opinions for this year? Again, the show is Thursday night, so if you can get comments on YouTube or right now, of course, live, that would be great. I look at these female sprinters, Chad. Wow. I mean, what a year for female sprinters. Goodnight Olive, Echo Zulu. Echo Zulu beat Goodnight Olive in Saratoga, but Goodnight Olive won the Breeders' Cup. Echo Zulu got hurt. I never loved Echo Zulu last year, to be very honest, Chad, but she was a completely different animal this year. And Maple Leaf Mel, it's such a damn shame. What a story. Another really talented horse. I think it's going to be Goodnight Olive, but if Echo Zulu wins, I can't really argue with that either.
Yeah, and I think, Echo Zulu could have ended up in the male sprint. I mean, Steve was really pointing for the real.
Yes.
He was going to face the boys in the sprint. I would have loved to see these 3 step on the track together and settle it. I mean, it's just a shame that we couldn't see that race happen.
Yeah,
I think Goodnight Olive wins. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Echo Zulu won, but Goodnight Olive, she probably did more than enough to win.
I think so. Male turf is good. It should go to Up to the Mark. I'll get to my Up to the Mark thoughts in just a minute. Last one there's 2 others I want to mention real quick, and then I'll show Paul Halloran's Eclipse Award ballot, which he gave me his blessing to show. Female turf. This is a tricky one. I know in Italian was good early in the year, but she tailed off. To me, it's either Inspiral or Mauge. I'd give a slight nod to Mauge only because Mauge ran twice here in this country, Kyle, and Inspiral only ran once. That being said, Inspiral was super impressive in the Breeders' Cup mile.
Yes, yeah, and I'll pat myself on the back. It was
Philly and Mare. Sorry, the Philly and Mare turf. Excuse me.
Yes, and but like you said, I mean, Italian was really good early, not so good late. Mauge, yeah. I mean, it feels kind of rough, and this is a conversation a lot of people have. It's giving it to horses that run once here or run twice here, coming over from England. But both races Mauge ran were huge. Obviously Inspiral ran really well, but people I think are going to give. I think the nod might go to Mauge with the 2 races instead of 1.
The Iron Breeders should go to Godolphin. I don't even want to have that conversation. They just had a monster year.
I agree.
And Chad, if Bill Mott doesn't win this year, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I love Chad. I love Brad. Bill Mott had a ridiculous year. This should be a slam dunk win for Bill Mott, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, he had a 2-year-old champion. He's going to have a 4. I mean, he did it from 2-year-olds all the way up until what? Didn't he some of his barn was 8 or 9 that won, right? I mean, it's just incredible. Yeah.
No. And I know Irad's going to get it probably, but I'll tell you what. Flavian can ride with anyone in the world. Flavian, as good as a turf rider Irad is, I might argue Flavian is slightly better. I mean, they're both amazing. Flavian just doesn't get the same number of mounts, and he has to go to Saratoga and face the Ortiz brothers. But, and Tyler, good for Tyler for being up there. No Castellano, Kyle. I know you were. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of wins, but he won every big damn race this year, fella.
Yeah, and that's what I think people are. There's a lot of talk, obviously, on X and Twitter and all that type of stuff about, Castellano not getting into the jockey standpoint. And obviously the point is that he doesn't win as many races as the guys on the screen, but, Derby, Belmont, Travers, it's all Castellano. And the fact that, he doesn't get the nod is obviously a gripe of a lot of people.
Chad, last one we'll just talk about and we'll end the show. This what everyone's looking at right now. This was Paul Halloran, our co-host, who also writes for the Saratoga Special. Chad is excellent, not only handicapper, but journalist. This was his actual pick. Full disclosure, as everyone knows on this show, he is writing a book about Cody's Wish. I know for a fact that has nothing to do with his opinion because he's a very honorable kind of guy. Cody's Wish, White Barrio, Up to the Mark. To me, those are the 3 you really have to consider for Horse of the Year. Chad, in your opinion, let's say I give you those 3. White Barrio. Actually, I think those are the 3, right? Is it? Let me just check real quick. Sorry, I should know, but I don't. For Horse of the Year, let me see.
I don't think that one has.
I don't think they don't publicize.
It wasn't on there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, sorry. Let's say I give you those 3. Let's say I give you Cody's Wish, White Barrio, Up to the Mark, who really had an unbelievable year. Who would you go with, Chad?
I would go Cody's Wish. Yeah, I would go same thing with Paul. Okay. Just and that's taken. It's hard to take the emotions out of it, obviously.
Yeah.
With the whole scenario, but I think Cody's Wish did enough on his resume to to justify the being horse of the year.
I think so. But you know what? To me, let me take this off the screen. We'll end the show here. Guys, to me, Up to the Mark is like 1A. I mean, Up to the Mark had an unbelievable year. Can you imagine if he didn't get injured too, guys? And in the Breeders' Cup Turf, I loved Augusta Rodin, as you know, Kyle. It's not red boarding. It was my top pick of the entire weekend. And I put my money where my mouth is in the Breeders' Cup betting challenge. If Augusta Rodin, who you can make the argument is the second best turf horse in the world next to Equinox, I mean the top 5 for sure. If Augusta Rodin doesn't get a great trip, if Augusta Rodin doesn't get a great trip, Up to the Mark could have easily won that race. I mean, he ran as good a second as you can run. He won every big race in this country easily in the turf division. He's clearly good enough to win world-class races. It's just I don't think he's going to win Horse of the Year this year, but I just want to give my hats off to Up to the Mark, who I thought had a monster year.
He did, and Todd Pletcher, man, he could train a turf horse.
He sure can.
But you were talking about, when's the last time you saw an American turf horse have this good of a campaigin? We go back.
Well, not for bricks and mortar.
Bricks and mortar is true. Yeah.
Wise Dan.
Yeah, there have been a few, and some of those have run at Fairgrounds. By the way, Chad, I don't mean to end the show with a bummer. What happened to 2 Emmys? It's just freaking brutal, man. And
never seen anything
2
like
Emmys,
that
of course, won the Arlington Million. Kyle and I have a soft spot on our heart for Hugh Robertson. 2 Emmys. I don't mean to end the show on the downer, but just thinking about the turf division, and he ran many times at Fairgrounds, was a fan favorite. And he came back and won. I didn't like him in the race last month, and he just won again. I mean, just
crazy.
Hats off to that horse. 2 Emmys.
No, he had an incredible career here at the Fairgrounds, and I've never seen an injury happen like that, training or in a race or anything like that. It's just a freak accident, and it's a shame. But I mean, hopefully, there's a race, Risen Star Weekend, that's I think called the Fairgrounds Breeders' Cup Handicap is what they call it. Screw the name of that race. That race next year should be named the 2 Emmy Stakes.
Yes, I think that's a great call. Please talk to the racing secretary.
Yeah,
powers that be.
Pull him up.
Yeah. Listen, Chad, we really appreciate you being on the show, and Kyle, of course, too. Chad, any final thoughts? Tell everyone again what you got going on at Fairgrounds. Anything personally you want to share, or just anything else to wrap up the show?
I think watch out for some of these barns heating up here. We got some good jockeys, Ben Curtis, and coming over. He's been riding really well. Jaime Torres has really caught fire lately. On the big days, though, it's hard to beat those Giroux and Saez's and those guys coming in, but. Look for the next couple of this week or so. Steve Asmussen's releasing a few of these fillies. He's got some first time starters on the filly side coming out. Watch out.
All right, I'm looking for
the best one he had did not run in the Silver Umbrella Day. That's all I'll say. That wasn't the best one.
There we go.
All right, I think that's filling off air. I think we got to find out. Chad knows the clocker as well. I'm waiting for a 3-year-old filly, Kyle, to explode.
Yeah.
Because right now the 3-year-old filly division. It's just, we haven't seen anything impressive yet so far. Kyle, final thoughts for you. Kyle, who do you got the Pegasus? Have you looked at it? I know you guys are doing some shows coming up.
I know. I haven't looked at it fully yet. I can't give out my pick until you have to watch the show on Wednesday.
There you go.
8 p.m. Eastern, Betting and Boozing. Of course, tune into us. We'll go over the middle pick 4 that has. And, of course, we'll give our picks for the big. We won't go through them necessarily like they will on the Thursday show, which you should watch as well. But we'll give our picks and stuff. So check out Betting and Boozing on Wednesday nights. And thanks, Chad, for coming on. Really appreciate it.
No, Kyle, good seeing you, man. Y'all take it easy.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chad. I got to make my way down to New Orleans at some point. I haven't been down there, so I'm
waiting for you.
I hear you.
I'm ready to be at the airport. Tell me when
I got my bat ready. Come on, bring the heater, Chad. I'm ready for it, buddy.
Let's go. Get out of that cold weather, man.
There you go. Thanks a lot for Chad Schexnayder and Kyle Roscoe. This has been Howard Kravitz, episode 3 of Horsin Around. We appreciate everyone watching. Crush your bets this week. Many great shows coming up. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.